Hello and welcome. My name is Annalisa Maria if you're new here. Today I'm going to discuss the question, what the heck is a grimoire? AKA a book of shadows slash is there a difference between a grimoire and a book of shadows? And I just wanted to take you along as I find out a little more about it and show you some ideas and how I am making mine. And I hope you enjoy. So first of all, what is a grimoire? Well, a grimoire and a book of shadows both are defined as sort of a collection of a book, a journal, a collection of information and reference about magic and spellcraft that an individual witch keeps to categorize their knowledge, I suppose. And the main difference between a grimoire and a book of shadows is a grimoire tends to refer to a more formal, put together sort of like a reference book, you know, that's almost usually like done and like it's a grimoire, you know, it's very prestigious. And a book of shadows sort of references more of like a casual version of a grimoire, like a book of shadows tends to be more of like a personal magic journal slash record slash reference that you kind of work in and go along. Now, a lot of people use these terms interchangeably and the definitions kind of overlap, they're not super clear. But I just like to make that distinction in case anyone was wondering why there are two different words and if there was any difference. So in this video, even though I really like the word grimoire, I think we're technically making more of a book of shadows. But I want to get into what I'm making and how. The Book of Shadows is a very deeply personal thing, and no one's Book of Shadows is going to look the same. Some people have lots of books of shadows throughout their lives. Some of you have lots of books of shadows at once. As if you ask anyone, they'll probably say there's really no right way, but I hope that this book gives you lots of ideas and inspiration, and it's just fun to watch if you're kind of new to making your book like I am and are wanting someone to do it with you. Let's talk about making your book of shadows. What book do you use? Well, again, as is the answer to almost all these questions, there is no real right answer. You can basically use whatever works for you and whatever feels good. But I'd say two of the most popular options are probably either like a really pretty journal that feels special and sacred and beautiful, or sort of like a binder system, like things that you can move around and collect, you know? And those are two very different approaches, but I'd say they're both fairly popular, and I've dabbled in both. So I actually hadn't really put a lot of effort into curating my books of shadows before, so this is kind of like a new thing for me. Even though I've been into witchcraft for quite a while, I never really got around to it, and so I had a lot of fun experimenting with what worked for me, and so I thought I could share. When I first decided I wanted to venture into making a book of shadows and I was getting back into witchcraft, I got this from the Dollar Tree, which is basically like this really flimsy binder cover, and then it's got 3 different folders in it and just a bunch of paper in them. I got this system because I thought, hey, this way I can move pages around and always add extra pages, and it can be more like a, I don't know, like working like reference book, if that makes sense. I don't really know. But so I got, you know, I wrote a bit in this. I got some information for sure, but I very quickly realized that this is not for me. It's just too big, it's too floppy and cumbersome, and it just didn't motivate me to want to write in it because it felt like a chore every time to have to deal with this thing, and it was really annoying to bring everywhere, so I wouldn't recommend that. I think if you're going to get a binder, I would get a nicer binder than this. I decided after I experimented with the other book that I wanted a nice notebook to make into my book of shadows, and I got this notebook from a local bookstore in my community, and I thought it was just so beautiful and it really fit kind of the vibe I was going for. So I was like, this is it. This will be my grimoire. So really, like I said, yeah, there's no like one right book to choose. I think you just want to make sure that it's something that brings you joy, that feels right, and it's something that you're not afraid to write in. Whatever is easy to take around, feels right in your hands, all that stuff. where should I work on my Book of Shadows? Ideally, you can work on your Book of Shadows anywhere. I think kind of the point of it is that it's supposed to be a very personal connection to you, and you should be able to bring it with you wherever you want and just get in the mood to work on it. And I think that that's kind of for me, an easy, fun way to add like the amount of time in a day or in a week that I'm spending on like my spiritual practices. It's kind of an easy thing to just go through my Book of Shadows and add some more pages and look through it and stuff like that. And it's a really like tangible, simple thing to do that you can do really often and you can do anywhere. I will say I started this Book of Shadows at my altar because I just felt like it was the right place to do it. I also wanted to cleanse it before I worked in it. So I started working on it at my altar, and I would say that's a really good idea. It feels like you're connecting to it, but I would definitely say make sure you have all the supplies you want to use with you, because it's really annoying, especially if your altar is like somewhere kind of far, which mine is, to have to go get your supplies, because I didn't remember to bring everything. As far as what supplies to bring, definitely you'll need like pen or pencil. I like to write in pen just because it's like more aesthetically pleasing. This is also really up to the person, but I think that a Book of Shadows is really fun when it is like an artistic, creative sort of thing. And it should just feel really personal to you and spark joy for you and be an outlet for you. So for me, I have a bunch of different like colored pens and markers and stuff in here. And then I also like use some of these washi tapes that are actually my mom's, but she has some really cool patterns. Like this one is actually the freaking moon phases. Yeah, those were kind of the only two materials I could find like in my home, but I'd really love to incorporate stickers, like cutouts, texture, like pressed plants, all sorts of different things I think you can include. I'm kind of the belief that like your notebooks can be like chunky, they almost should be chunky, you know? I really like that. It's a very like sensory pleasing experience to flip through a really chunky textural notebook. But unfortunately I didn't have too many supplies to work with at this current moment, but that's the great thing about a Book of Shadows is you're always adding to it and you can always just go back and play with it. As far as other supplies you might need while you're making it, I'd just say keep your references on hand. My references that I used when starting to create my new Book of Shadows was my old Book of Shadows, which I'd already written quite a few things in, and then I also have a couple books like at my house. I think they're both about like kitchen magic, which is helpful because it does have a lot of like plant and herb identification properties and stuff. But I'm sad because I have way more books that I'd really like to use as a reference, but they're all packed up in a storage unit, so I only used those two. Pinterest is a great reference. Like, don't be afraid to copy stuff off of Pinterest just because it's Pinterest. Like, I know it feels like, oh, is this okay? But yeah, it is. I just say check your sources because, you know, you don't want to just like blindly copy something off of the internet without knowing who's putting it out there and what they mean by it. So you do have to be a little careful about that, but I would definitely consider it, and there's a lot of really cool ideas on there because it's other witches just like sharing the things they do and the things they practice and the things they like. Okay, what do you write in your grimoire? Like, what do you write in there? Well, lots of things. You can write lots of things. First of all, I wanted to mention like the idea of sections. Like lots and lots of people love to separate their grimoire or their Book of Shadows into different sections, like spells, reference lists, journal entries. And I actually tried to do this in my old Book of Shadows where I had the binder. I had like 3 different sections. It was like journal entries, spells, and then like just information. And I didn't like it. And it was like, I did it in sections because I could remove the pages, so it felt easier in the binder. But I was like, I thought about doing sections when I got this, but I was like, I don't want to just divide it into 3 and then have all these blank pages in between because I don't know, it just doesn't feel great to me. I came up with an alternative to sections to keep your Book of Shadows organized in a way that feels a lot better to me. And that is creating a table of contents. So I recommend creating a table of contents for your Book of Shadows or any journal really. It's honestly a really nice thing to have. And basically all you do is just you know, at the beginning of the book where you want your table of contents. I usually only set aside 2 pages, and then I'm like, I can always tape some more pages in there if I need the table of contents to be longer. You just write table of contents, and then you number them, and then you write whatever you wrote on that page. And you make it as you go along, so that you're just kind of like, you have a really easy reference right there to see what you need to flip to, without having to kind of premeditate all that organization and then make sure you're sticking to the organizational method you mentioned. You just I can kind of like brain dump and then organize it and see where I brain dump what later, and I really like that. The first page I actually wrote in here, which is actually before my table of contents. My table of contents starts on the next page, so it's kind of like page 0, I guess you could say. Is just a page where I sort of define my magical practice and like what witchcraft is to me and like what this Book of Shadows is sort of about. And so I just wrote like the personal practice of witchcraft, brujeria, magic, sorcery to me, and it has this big long thing I wrote about it. And I just feel like that's a really good sort of like meditation on my beliefs that I really think is a good thing to have just right in the front, you know? But as far as other like basic things, pages that you can start with that I liked to start with, deities and spirits. Like you can do a page kind of like with profiles on the different deities and spirits that you work with or believe in. Something popular is a page on how to cast a circle, your personal circle casting method. Not everyone casts circles, that's fine. I like to sometimes, so I have that in there. I also have a page on sigils, all of which I created myself. I'm a big believer in creating your own sigils. Colors and their meaning. There's a page for phases of the moon. And then I would say also just other like lists and references of different meanings and like times to do things, like so the moon phases, magical herbs, especially focus on like the ones that are available to you that you have in your pantry, because you don't need to like write down every herb that's ever existed, because I think that can be overwhelming sometimes if you're kind of new to witchcraft or in general anyways, like whenever being like, oh, I have to memorize all of this and I have to know what all of these things means, and so I should write like 5 pages of herb definitions in my notebook. But I don't think that's the move, because I don't enjoy that and it just feels too overwhelming. So just focus on the ones you like to work with and the ones that are available to you. And then if you find a new herb or crystal or spell or whatnot, you can add that in later, and that's the best thing about the Book of Shadows. Just want to go in and whatever is inspiring you, just start filling it up. And for me, I made a page and then I would put it in my table of contents. And I'm not too far along still, obviously. I don't have very much in here, but like that's just the beautiful thing about a Book of Shadows, like I keep saying, is that it's meant to be like a living record, you know, like it's meant to, you're working with it, you know, it's not done. Some other ideas of just things you can write on the pages are spells, rituals, jinxes, limpias, prayers, journal entries, observations, descriptions of your personal beliefs in different ways, specific practices, favorite holidays, celebrations, basically anything that like vaguely relates to your witchcraft slash spiritual practice that you want to keep record of slash have a reference of. Just go ahead and write it. Just go ahead and write it. It's okay to mess up in your Book of Shadows, like really okay to mess up. And it feels like, I feel like when I've tried to make one before, I felt a lot of pressure about making it perfect, especially if it's in a really like beautiful notebook like this. But I'll tell you something, I actually started writing in this upside down on the wrong side. And at first I was really upset, and then I just accepted it. And that's part of the charm of my Book of Shadows now. But really, it's okay to white out things and, you know, put paper over it, to cross things out and rewrite it. Like, so while it's totally okay to mess up and like you don't need to put pressure on yourself or really detailedly plan out your pages. Some people really like to detailedly plan out their pages, but I find that makes it too much pressure for me. But each page should still feel special. Like, I really just like to really try and focus on the page I'm making when I'm working on a page, and then just kind of like add whatever I can think of slash feels right that kind of make it more appealing or interesting or bright or helpful. You should be able to add to it frequently because you want this to be something that works with you, that feels like it's there for you, that you're not afraid to pick up and use and work on. And I think it should really be fun, like it shouldn't feel like a chore. So yeah, that's pretty much all my advice slash experience with making a grimoire slash more like Book of Shadows. I can't wait to keep adding more to it. It's been really fun so far, and it really inspires me to keep working on it. I think I want to start doing like magical journal entries where I just kind of like record as much as I can, like what I did in my practice and like how I felt about it. I hope that this video helped you slash was interesting and fun to watch. If you have any questions, let me know down in the comments, and subscribe for more videos. I'm trying to post twice a week in October. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.